Hi there, welcome back again. So today's tutorial is on how to draft a basic sleeve. So there are a lot of ways to go about doing this. People have their own methods. So I'm going to show you how I do mine and the one that works for me. So without wasting much time, please do well to like this video, share, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and let's get on with the tutorial. So I have my pattern paper here, and the major measurements I'll be needing are my cap's height, my armhole measurement for the front and the back, my sleeve length and my sleeve length circumference measurement, which in this case is my wrist because this is a long sleeve. Now I've just drawn out my starting line at the top of the paper, and I'm going to divide that line into two. So I'm just marking the midpoint of the line, and I'll divide my pattern paper into two halves. So one part is for the back and the other part is for the front. Now I'm going to mark out my cap's height measurement. So placing the tape from the starting line, I'm marking down 4.5 inches. Now I get this by measuring from the tip of my shoulder over my arm to where my armpit line starts. So you make sure you're placing the tape at the very tip of your shoulder, over your arm by the side to where your armpit starts from. So you take that measurement and what you have is your cap's height measurement. So I'm going to draw out that line. Next, I'm going to mark out the full length of my sleeve. So like I already mentioned earlier, this is a long sleeve pattern I'm drafting out. You can use this exact method and draft out a shorter sleeve. So you can just stop at maybe 6 or 7 inches or just at your elbow, 3/4. It depends on what you want. But this is a long sleeve I'm drafting out. So the sleeve length I used is 24 inches. I'm just going to draw out that line, and then you can go on to draw out your elbow line as well, but I won't be drawing that out because I don't really need that here. But just to mark where my elbow is supposed to be, I'll take the measurement from my cap's height to the full length and mark the midpoint of that line. So that midpoint is supposed to be my elbow. Now just to confirm with my actual shoulder to elbow measurement, it is 14.25 inches. My shoulder to my elbow is 14.25. Now if I place the tape from the starting line down to that midpoint, it is almost exactly the same measurement, just by 0.1 difference. So you can see that the midpoint from the cap's height to the wrist is actually the elbow line. Now for the lines I have drawn out here, I have my starting line at the top. Next is my biceps line, which is the cap's height I marked there, and the full length line, which is the sleeve length. Now the next thing to mark out is my armhole measurement. So I'm going to bring in the dress I'm trying to make a sleeve for. So this is it right here. You can see the armhole is already sewn at the side seam. Now I'm going to measure the front armhole starting from the shoulder joining. I'll just follow it all around until I get to where the armhole stops, which is right where the side seam starts. So right at that point, it is 8.5 inches. So my front armhole is 8.5 inches. I'm trying to write it out here. Now I'm going to measure the back armhole now, still starting from the shoulder joining. I'm just going to follow the curve from that point down to where I have the side seam, which is where the armhole ends, and what I have there for the back armhole is 8.25 inches. So there is a difference between my back and front armhole because of how I drafted out my pattern. So you should have something like this if there is a difference in your actual basic body's pattern drafting. Now I'm just going to note that down there, and I'm going to start with the front part. So I'll take my straight ruler and place it on this front part from the middle of that line, that very center line at the top. I'm just going to slant it down for the ruler to touch the biceps line. I'll adjust the ruler until I'm able to have 8.5 inches, which is the armhole measurement for the front. I don't trust the measurement on the ruler, so I'm trying to confirm it with my measuring tape. But yeah, it actually works. I've marked 8.5 inches there, which is the measurement for the front armhole. Now I'll slant a straight line from that 8.5 inches upwards to the midpoint of that line. I'm going to do the same thing for this back part. So my back armhole measurement, which is 8.25 inches, I'll place my ruler at the tip of that center line and adjust it until I have 8.25 inches on the biceps line. I'll confirm it with my measuring tape so I know that it is correct, and then I'm going to slant a straight line from that center line down to the biceps line. Now I'm done doing that, it is time to draw out the curve for the armhole of the sleeve. So I'll start with the front part. I'll measure out the entire length of that line, which we already know to be 8.5 inches, and I'm going to mark the midpoint of that line. Now you can draw out your curve by just starting from the center point and going as high as you want, meeting at that midpoint I just marked, going as low as you want, and then into the biceps line. But that is not right because you might end up having a very irregular curve and it will affect the fitting of your sleeve. So for a guide, I'm going to further divide this line into two parts again. So I'm going to measure from the center point to this division I have just made, and I'll mark the midpoint of that line. Okay, please just pay attention to what I am doing. After marking that midpoint, I'm also going to measure from this middle division I made earlier down to the biceps line. That's the remaining of the line. I'll mark the midpoint again. So I've been able to divide this line into 4 parts, right? Now on this first line I have here, I'm going to go upwards by half an inch. So the way I'm placing the tape might look contradicting, but it's actually half inch I am marking. I'm marking upwards half inch, and then on this second point here, I am marking downwards half inch as well. So my curve is going to start from the center point upwards to that half inch, down to the middle division I have there, then lower to the half inch below, and then into the biceps line. So I'm going to make use of my curve ruler to do that. So just watch how I'm curving it. I'll just try to have a very fine smooth curve, and then I'll turn the ruler over this way and continue from that middle division into the biceps line, making sure that it touches the half inch above and half inch below, and it does not exceed that. So what I've done on the front part, I'm going to do it on this back part. I've measured this entire line and I've marked the midpoint right here. Now I'm going to further divide this line again into 2. So I'll mark from this center line to this middle division. I'll mark the midpoint right there. I'll do the same thing from the middle division down to the biceps line and mark the midpoint also. Now on the front part we just curved out, I went up by half an inch and I came down by half an inch, remember? So on this back part, on this first point here, I'm going to also go up by half an inch, but then I'm going to come down here by 0.25 inches and not half inch. This is the only difference between the back and the front armhole. So I went above on that first point by half an inch and I came below on the second point by 0.25 inches. And now I'm going to draw out my curve just like I did for the front part. I'll just try to make sure that the armhole of the back blends with the front around, let's just say, that shoulder point where I have the starting line. So I'm just going to continue with my curve this way into the biceps line. So now you might be thinking, this measurement I've drawn out for my armhole, has it not affected my biceps circumference measurement because it stops on the biceps line? So now let us just confirm my biceps circumference measurement. My biceps circumference is 14 inches. So all around my biceps, 14 inches. I'm just going to measure from the start of this line, from the back part to the front part where it ends, and what I have there is about 14.1 inches. So I am on track. But if yours is smaller, you can do well to add it up, but I think if you follow the exact measurement, you're just going to have it right. Okay, now moving on to the wrist, I'm going to mark my wrist circumference measurement divided by 2, starting from the center of the line towards the front, and then from the center of the line towards the back. It is about 3.25 inches for my wrist circumference divided by 2. And now I'm going to slant from here to the biceps line just this way. I'll slant the front part as well this way, and our sleeve is ready just like that. Very easy. Now before we finish up completely, I just want us to confirm our armhole measurement. So remember that the armhole measurement for the back is 8.25 inches and for the front is 8.5 inches. So we have to confirm to make sure that we have our accurate armhole measurement, and maybe with a little excess. So I'm going to start with the back armhole. I'll place my tape this way, and from the biceps line I'm just going to follow the curve until I get to that center line. So at that point there, when I got there, I have 8.5 inches. So we have a little excess of 0.25 for the back armhole. And now for the front armhole, I'm also going to follow the curve, making sure I place my tape this way. And when I got to the side there, I have 9 inches. Remember, the initial measurement was 8.5 inches. So I have a little excess of 0.5 inches for the front armhole, but everything is still good. Now I'm just going to go on to add allowance all around the sleeve. I'm adding half inch to the sides, and I'm also going to add half inch to the armhole part, and I'm going to add 0.75 inches to the length of the sleeve. Alright, beautiful people, this is everything for this tutorial. Now you can use this pattern to draft out a short sleeve, mid sleeve, or a long sleeve just like this. Now just to show you the difference in the armhole curve, I'll just place the front on the back this way, and as you can see how the curve is, it starts the same from the top, and then when it gets toward the side, the front armhole is a bit deeper than the back armhole. So the difference is just a little 0.25 inches. Thank you so much for watching. Please do well to give this video a thumbs up. Also share and subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.